This is the presentation for standardized testing. It corresponds with Chapter 15 in your text. There's a lot of information in Chapter 15. I have isolated certain things that I really need you to know, and it's not that many from the chapter, but there's a lot of stuff that's in the presentation that you do need to know. So please follow along in the chapter so that you can correlate what's there with what's here, and you get a full picture of what you need to know. This is information that you're not just going to study for the exam, but you're going to need to know as you become a teacher, and you go out into the field, because questions will be asked of you where it comes to testing, how tests are created, how they're evaluated. The average person does not understand that. Parents will call and ask questions to which you'll need to know the answers. All right, here are 3 websites that you should be familiar with. The first one corresponds to our new Common Core requirements that the federal government is advocating at the moment. There is going to, with the new curriculum, there will also be an assessment. The National Center for Education Statistics has this National Assessment of Educational Progress. That's what NAEP is. And this is the website for it. It has several sample questions across different disciplines. You can test yourself. They have the answers. If I were you, if you want to do the sample questions, you should try a few by yourself first before you do it with other people, because it really is challenging, and you don't want to embarrass yourself. But this might just be the test that you administer or you have to proctor within the next few years as the Common Core becomes more ubiquitous. Now, here are the tests in the state of New Jersey that you need to know. You need to know them. Here they are. For elementary school, this is, by the way, this is the New Jersey Department of Education's website. For elementary school, you're going to have to administer the New Jersey assessment of skills and knowledge. It is administered in grades 3 and now through 8th grade. All right, even though it says 3 to 5 there, but it's you used to, when you were in if you went to school in New Jersey, when you were in 8th grade, you took what was called the grade 8 proficiency assessment. Now the assessment is the New Jersey Ask all the way from grades 3 through 8, and then in high school you're going to be taking the HSPA, which is an abbreviation for the high school proficiency assessment. That is also right here, where it says high school proficiency assessment, and that's what you're going to be taking at grade 11. Again, if you take the New Jersey Ask in 8th grade and you get certain scores, and to which you are recommended to go to a class for remediation or for basic skills, you might have to take another test around 9th grade called the early warning test, and they might place you in special skills classes in order to so that you can pass the special review assessment classes, so that you can pass the HSPA and test out. If you don't pass the HSPA in high school, you do not graduate. So it's very important. Special review assessment classes are very important. I hate to say this, but I will. New teachers, non-tenured teachers, primarily teach those special review assessment courses, basic skills. So prepare yourself if you're a teacher of English, social studies, math. You just might end up teaching that, and you can make it interesting, and there's ways to make anything interesting. Okay, so now you know what SRA stands for, you know what HSPA stands for. Look, there's the NAEP that I just showed you the website for. And if your students are individuals with disabilities under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act and are unable for any reason to take the HSPA, they will be taking the alternative high school assessment, formerly SRA, or the alternate proficiency assessments. Those are portfolio assessments. They're more subjective in nature, but they speak to the actual talents and the work habits that the students have that just can't be assessed with a standardized timed instrument. And finally, the trends in international math and science study. It was first conceptualized by President Bush Sr., who, number 41 president, who wanted us by the year 2000 to be number one in reading, math, literacy, math, and science. And he did a preliminary test just against other, well, we did the test with other countries that wanted to participate. And it turned out we got embarrassed because we were not number one. We were not even number two. So let's look at this website. Okay, what happened was, well, we have, again, as you can see here, you have results going back farther even than 1995. When we first did this, the numbers were really bad, but now they're better. We're going to do it again in 2015, but I'll just kind of give you the most recent results that we have, 2011. So let's look at grades 4 and 8 in mathematics. All right, and the charts, where are the charts? The charts are here. Oh, sorry, right there. Okay, this is grade 4, and this is mathematics. And as you can see, the United States, our children are here. When you consider that we have free education from kindergarten to 12th grade, I think perhaps we might do better. In the state of New Jersey alone, we spend $12,000 per student on education. That's tax dollars going towards education. I would think with that much money being spent that our scores would be higher, but it's not. So let's go back and look at 8th grade mathematics. And in 8th grade, we're still not number one. We're not in the top 5. Okay, so you get the idea. These are standardized tests. Just as a note, all the tests that were given around the world was the same test because math and science are universal. And in the United States, we chose our best students. We chose to take this exam, to participate in this study, and we have routinely done so over the past several years. We choose our best kids to participate in this so that we can present ourselves in our best light. And these are the scores that you're seeing. Pretty interesting. It says a lot about how we deliver information, how we teach, and what we need to be teaching. Okay, the rationale for education needs to be changed, and there are a lot of people who are trying to change it in various ways innovatively. Here's an example. Some states and school districts give cash advances to people who are able to raise their scores. These teachers in Florida refused to take the money that they would have gotten because their students' scores went up because they felt that it wasn't fair to everybody. At the time, Governor Bush was in office, and that's the way it went. Schools, if you'll note here, schools that received an A due to high average scores were awarded $100 per student. So imagine that. So let's say you're teaching in the course of a day, you have 105 students. So you figure $100 per student, that's a lot of money they turned down. Interesting, huh? And here's another example. Where the teachers were awarded the money, and they did take the money. Just as an idea. This is in Georgia. 4 teachers got $4,000 for beating the state average in test scores. Okay, tests are standardized. And here's the road to standardization. This is how tests are standardized so that we can call them standardized tests. First of all, a publishing company or sometimes the government, depending on who the stakeholder is, or it might be a think tank that is financed by Bill and Melinda Gates or someone else. A test is created, and between 15 to 25,000 students are chosen to take the test for the first time. Those scores that they generate become what we call the norm. They are that first group of people who take that test. They become that group that the first those scores are referred to as the norm group. Okay, so here's what happens. That norm group is the standard against which all other scores are compared. So let's say you're a third grader and you take the standardized test for spelling. Your score is compared to that group in the Midwest who took the test for the first time. The norm group has to represent the demographics of the United States, and that's why I said the Midwest. Usually tests are normed in the Midwest because then you get your proportions of this according to the census what America looks like. So you get your 70% white, you get your what is it, 13% black and 15% Hispanic, etc. And so you get the proportions that represent America according to them anyway. So the standard. All right, and then every time somebody takes the test, their scores are compared to that standard group. So the test is standardized, and the standard is the norm group, and the norm group is the first group of people to take the exam. Tests are normed often. Every time a test is revised or updated, they have to norm it again. They have to take it back out there and find another group that represents the census population and give that test again to get another batch of scores to compare other people's scores to. All right, some statistical considerations from your text. You have a lengthy explanation of validity and a lengthy explanation of reliability. For your purposes, I just want you to understand that before a test is even normed on the first group, they are given internal tests to make sure that the tests measure what they're supposed to measure. What they say that they're measuring. So if you're giving a test to determine how much a child has learned from one year to the next, a validity assessment will determine whether or not that test really does um, bring that about, show that the student has learned what you taught them from one year to the next. And the reliability is also that's actually quite important because it can also determine how much an assessment package costs the district to buy. You get a coefficient of between 0 and 1, and if you have a high reliability coefficient, let's say maybe the test has a reliability coefficient of 0.85, that's pretty good. That means that 85% of the time you give the test, it gives you the same measurements over and over again. You get the same spread of scores over and over again, and the average is the same every time you give it. That means it's reliable. And you have two different kinds of reliability here, and you also have three different kinds of validity. Am I going to ask you to define them? No, but you do need to be aware that there are there are different kinds of validity, different kinds of reliability, and what reliability and validity are. Okay, standardized tests generate the following. Raw scores. The raw score is how many items on a test that you scored correctly. That's the kind of score that you get on any test that you take in class here at William Patterson or anywhere else. For example, if you took the SAT and you got a 2000, that is your raw score. The percentile rank is your comparison to the norm group. So let's say if you're a ninth grader and you take the reading comprehension section of the California test, let's say, and you get, I don't know, you scored 70%. That means that you did better in reading comprehension than 70%, 69% of the people who took the test out in the Midwest who were in the ninth grade. Okay? That's your percentile rank. It ranks you against the norm group. Grade equivalent scores. That same ninth grader who took the test in reading comprehension, he might have gotten a 75 as a percentile rank, and he might have gotten a grade equivalent score of 8.1, which means that his reading comprehension is like that of an eighth grader in the first month of eighth grade. Grade equivalent scores always have a decimal point, and they have another number behind it. The first number represents the grade. The second number after the decimal point represents the month at which that student is functioning. The mean is just a fancy word for average. You take all of the raw scores. So you have a whole class full of students. You have 20 students, let's say. You add up all their scores, divide by 20, and you've got the mean. You've got the average score for that class. And then the standard deviation. You take the mean and you plot it on a curve, let's say. In your text, there is a picture of a bell curve, and it shows you the standard deviation in the big part, the big peak of the bell curve will be your average. That's going to be the mean, and the standard deviation is the spread of scores away from the mean. And you have a beautiful definition of that also in your text. All these have definitions in your text. Please check them out. Cross-section them with mine so that you can get a complete understanding of these terms, because you're going to need to know what they are. Okay, we use standardized tests to make sure that kids are learning from one year to the next, and that if the curriculum is worth the money we spend on it. And they're now using it to determine whether or not teachers are teaching. President George W. Bush was big on that. He said, you know, if teachers are teaching, then people will be able to pass the tests. That was his rationale. The achievement gap. Okay, I'm sorry, achievement tests. You have standardized tests of achievement. They measure how much a person has learned from one year. This is, again, this term achievement test is in your textbook. The GEPA that you used to take, but is no longer required in New Jersey, was a standardized achievement test, as well as New Jersey Ask and the HSPA. National achievement tests. No, you're not going to need to know these, but I put them up here because I want you to see just what big business it is to sell tests. There are publishers who that's all they do is sell tests. That's one of the reasons why this high stakes testing is such a big deal, because it's making money. And so there's a lot of people who want to continue it because it's lucrative. Achievement tests, on the other hand, they measure, I'm sorry, we're still on achievement tests. We use them for ability grouping, which is a fancy word for tracking. Putting students in a classroom with people who have the same scores as they had on a certain portion of a test. We put them in the same group. We don't call it tracking anymore because that's not nice. It's not politically correct to say that, so we say ability grouping. And then basic skills screening, also to determine whether or not a person is college material, as they say, or not, vocational, and also screening for gifted and talented classes. We use them, achievement tests. So they are big business and they are quite important. Aptitude tests are tests that you take to help employers decide whether or not you'll be successful in a given career. So as you would guess, then the tests like the postal exam, the armed services aptitude test, they're all, aptitude tests. They're supposed to determine how successful you'll be in the future. The Educational Testing Service, ETS, has years and years of statistics stating that the SAT is an accurate predictor of success in college in the freshman year of college. Now, I'm sure many of you did very, very well in college and did poorly on the SAT, so every test is not perfect, but there you are. Oh, yes, your driver's examination is also an aptitude test. Okay, I'm sure you've got quite a few criticisms of this on your own, but have a look. People are annoyed by the fact that these standardized tests take precedent over recess. They've taken recess away in order to let people take these tests, have time to prepare for them. They are biased because they tend to appeal to a middle class dominant demographic of people, and that doesn't represent everybody. They are multiple choice heavy, and that's not I mean, for myself, and I have a PhD, multiple choice, I can't, I'm not very good at it because I'm more of a formal operational thinker. And I mean, you give me 4 choices, I can give you 2 more, so they rely heavily on multiple choice. And the teachers teach the test because they don't, especially non-tenured teachers, they don't want to lose their job. And sadly, art, music, and physical education tend to be usurped by the test preparation. So, and I'm sure you can think of many others. And if you can't, there are several discussed in your text at the end of chapter 15. Criterion reference tests are not standardized. Okay, they're generated by the curriculum. The test that you're about to take between June 5th and June 9th is a criterion reference test. It's based on the course of study for this class that's online. It's generated by the teacher. It's generated by the teacher, and it's how you get your CUME, how you get your GPA, class rank, etc. So they're equally as important as a standardized test, but they are not standardized, and your score is not compared to anyone else's.